It was April 7th, 1943, over the Solomon Islands. The first light of dawn stretched across the Pacific, turning the waves into molten gold. I, Takeshi Nishizawa, felt the heat of the morning on my flight suit as I adjusted the controls of my Mitsubishi A6M Zero, the engine humming beneath me like a living heartbeat. I had flown countless missions before, but this one felt different. Today, our mission was to intercept incoming American bombers threatening Japanese positions. The Zero beneath me was sleek, agile, and precise, a pilot's dream, but fragile, light armor leaving little margin for error. One lucky shot, and it could all be over. Around me, my squadron formed a tight formation. Faces were grim, each pilot aware of the danger ahead. I led them, trusting their skill as they trusted mine. My pulse quickened. The Pacific stretched endlessly below, calm yet deceptive, hiding the lethal risk that awaited in the sky above. I allowed myself a fleeting thought of home, Nagoya, my family, the cherry trees in spring. But the war demanded focus. The horizon already flickered with tiny dots, the American bombers approaching, escorted by swift P-38 Lightnings. My heart leapt. The calm before the storm had ended. I tightened my grip on the controls. The Zero responded instantly, climbing with graceful precision. I whispered under my breath, "Stay sharp, Nishizawa. This is it." Minutes later, the first shots rang out. Tracers arced through the sunlight, and the battle over the Solomon Islands began. The sky over the Solomon Islands erupted in chaos. The calm Pacific that had shimmered so beautifully from above moments ago was now a canvas of smoke, fire, and deadly tracers. I, Takeshi Nishizawa, tightened my grip on the control stick of my Mitsubishi Zero, the roar of the engine deafening, yet my mind sharp with focus. The American bombers were massive, lumbering giants, but their escorting P-38 Lightnings were fast, agile, and relentless. I dove toward the nearest bomber, guns blazing. Tracers cut across its fuselage, and flames licked its wings, curling into the sky. For a fleeting moment, triumph surged through me. Then the P-38s turned their attention towards me. Suddenly, a violent crack ripped through the cockpit. The canopy shattered, glass slicing my hands and face. Smoke poured in, stinging my eyes and choking my lungs. Pain erupted along my left side. Blood streaked my glove. A bullet had found its mark. The Zero pitched violently, spinning toward the ocean below. Flames crept along the fuselage, the engine sputtering. I could bail out, surrendering to the Pacific's endless expanse, but something inside me refused. I would not die here. I forced the Zero into a steep dive, using the wind to push the flames back from the cockpit. The metal screamed, the engine groaned, and my hands burned on the controls. But I held on. The ocean stretched endlessly beneath me, turquoise and infinite, a reminder of how fragile life truly was. Finally, I tore open the canopy and flung myself out. Air slammed into me, icy and punishing. Behind me, the Zero exploded in a blinding fireball, metal raining into the sea. Suspended in the air by my parachute, I hung between fear and relief, battered, burned, but alive. As I drifted toward the ocean, I realized how thin the line between life and death truly was. 1 second, one bullet, one miscalculation, and it could have ended. Yet somehow, I had survived. My will, my training, and sheer determination had carried me through the inferno. The sky was silent now, only the faint echo of engines, the scattered debris of burning planes, and the far-off crackle of gunfire remained. I floated downward, swaying beneath the wide canopy of my parachute, my body trembling, my mind half numb, half burning with pain. The battle above the Solomon Islands was already fading into a smoky haze, but for me, it wasn't over. The wind bit through my flight suit, carrying the stench of gasoline and scorched metal. I looked down. The Pacific stretched forever, blue, calm, deceptively peaceful, the kind of sight that would have taken my breath away in another life. Now, it only filled me with dread. I had survived the fire in the sky, but the ocean was another enemy entirely. Blood trickled from a gash along my forehead, blurring one eye. My left arm throbbed. The burns along it pulsed with every heartbeat. I could feel the warm stickiness of blood inside my gloves, mixing with the salt from the sea air. My Zero, my trusted companion, was gone. Nothing left but fragments sinking into the deep. For a moment, grief washed over me stronger than fear. That plane had carried me through dozens of battles. It had been part of me. Losing it felt like losing a piece of my soul. The air grew heavier as I fell lower. The parachute cords creaked. Below me the Pacific rippled, 1,000 mirrors flashing sunlight into my eyes. I could see the outline of the Solomon Islands ahead. Green jungles, black rocks, white foam. Safety and death lay side by side. I had no idea where I would land. A gust caught the parachute, spinning me violently. Pain flared across my ribs, and I clenched my teeth, forcing my mind to stay clear. Panic was the enemy now. I tried to steer toward the coast, pulling at the cords, though every movement felt like fire tearing through my shoulder. I could already hear the surf pounding against the reefs. When I hit the water, the shock of cold stole my breath. Salt flooded my mouth and nose. The parachute collapsed around me, dragging me under. I kicked wildly, cutting my burned hands on the tangled lines. The sea pulled hard, a living thing that wanted me to join the wreckage sinking below. My lungs screamed. I slashed at the cords with the knife on my boot and clawed my way to the surface. Air, salt, blood, pain, life. The sun seared my skin as I gasped. Waves tossed me like a leaf. I looked around. No ships, no planes, only endless water and the faint green smear of land in the distance. I began to swim. Each stroke was agony, but rhythm was survival. Kick, pull, breathe. Kick, pull, breathe. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time dissolved. I saw memories instead of minutes. My mother hanging laundry in Nagoya, the taste of rice and miso after training flights, the laughter of fellow pilots in the mess hall. They were ghosts now, flickering between the waves. At some point I stopped feeling pain. My arms moved on their own. The water had turned from blue to grey. The sun lowered, burning gold on the horizon. When my knees finally scraped sand, I collapsed forward and let the tide roll over me. Voices reached me, distant, urgent, human. Shadows bent over me. I felt hands under my shoulders lifting me from the surf. Japanese words cut through the ringing in my ears. Soldiers, our soldiers, were pulling me to safety. I remember only fragments. Being laid on a stretcher, someone pouring water over my face, the sting of antiseptic. Then darkness. When I woke, night had fallen. The jungle hummed with insects. A lantern flickered beside me, throwing light on my bandaged hands. My body was wrecked. Burns, cuts, a cracked rib, a bullet lodged near my side. But I was breathing. I was alive. For days, fever and dreams blurred together. I dreamed of the Zero, its silver wings slicing through clouds, its engine roaring like a living heart. In the dreams, I always tried to reach it, to climb back into the cockpit, but it stayed just beyond my grasp. When I finally stood again, Leaning on a medic's shoulder, I stepped outside the tent and faced the sea. The horizon was calm, as if it had forgotten the chaos of battle. The same water that had almost claimed me now shimmered peacefully under the morning light. I realized then how fragile life was, how easily the sky could give and the sea could take. I was scarred, weaker, slower perhaps, but something inside me had hardened. I had seen death up close and refused it. That defiance became my strength. From that day on, I vowed never to waste another second in hesitation. Weeks passed before I could walk without pain. The field hospital stood near the coast, built from bamboo and salvaged metal. At night, I could hear waves breaking on the shore, the same rhythm that had nearly drowned me. The doctors told me I shouldn't fly again for months. I nodded politely, but in my heart, I knew I would return to the sky as soon as I could hold the stick steady. My squadron had changed. Some of the faces I had known were gone, lost in battles fought while I recovered. When the survivors came to visit, their expressions carried that silent understanding shared only by pilots. Joy that one of us had returned, sorrow for the ones who hadn't. They wanted to know what had happened up there, how I had escaped the fire, how I had survived the ocean. I told them pieces of it, enough to satisfy curiosity, but not the whole truth. The real battle wasn't in the air. It was inside the cockpit, in the moment when you stare at the flames around you and decide that you are not done living. During those weeks, I often walked to the edge of the jungle where the trees opened toward the beach. I would stand there and watch the horizon, listening to the waves and the distant hum of engines from other missions. I thought about fate, how arbitrary it seemed. Why had I survived when others, braver perhaps, had not? When I finally returned to flight, the first time I touched the throttle of a new Zero, my hands trembled. Not from fear, from memory. The smell of oil, the vibration through the seat, the whistle of wind over the canopy. It was like stepping back into a familiar dream. But I was different now. I no longer chased glory or kills. Every flight was a borrowed gift. I became quieter, more deliberate. The younger pilots called me sensei, teacher. I trained them in evasive maneuvers, in the discipline of patience, in respect for the fragile machine that carried their lives. I told them that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was flying through fear and still making clear decisions. Sometimes at night, when the camp was silent, I would sit outside the barracks and write in a small notebook. Notes about flight patterns, the physics of turns, but also thoughts about what it meant to be human in a war that devoured humanity. I knew few would ever read those pages, but writing helped me keep the noise inside my head quiet. Years later, when the war finally ended and Japan lay in ruins, I found myself standing again by the ocean, older, scarred, and weary. The sea looked the same as it had that day, calm, endless, indifferent. I thought about all that had happened, the friends lost, the enemies faced, the fire and the fall. I thought about the Zero, how it had been both our pride and our downfall. The Mitsubishi A6M Zero became a legend, its name spoken with awe and sorrow. To the world, it was a symbol of Japan's aerial might. To me, it was a ghost, the machine that had nearly killed me and yet had given me purpose. I could still feel its vibration in my bones, still hear its engine in my dreams. I visited the graves of fallen comrades and left a small piece of metal from an old Zero engine there, a reminder of what we shared. We had lived in a world of smoke and sky, where seconds decided fate. The medals, the tallies, the victories, all of it faded. What remained was the bond of those who had dared to fly. Sometimes people ask me if I ever regretted it, the risks, the losses, the near death. My answer was always the same. No, Because in those moments, high above the Pacific, with the world burning below, I understood what it meant to be alive. As I look back now, I realize survival wasn't my greatest victory. Understanding was. I had learned that courage is not the roar of battle, but the quiet decision to keep living when every force around you says you cannot. And so, when I close my eyes, I still see that endless blue sky, the one that both tried to kill me and taught me how to live. I see the wings of the Zero glinting in the sunlight, the horizon stretching forever. The war took much from me, but it gave me one truth. The sky belongs to those who dare, and life belongs to those who refuse to surrender.